Hello everyone, I've been spending a lot of time designing my plot in Palia lately, and I wanted to share some of my favorite tips to help you elevate your design skills. My first tip is the power of trinkets and smaller pieces of furniture. Plants, hanging items, banners, stuffed animals, anything you can possibly use to fill up a room with a little by little. These add so much to a room and make it look a lot more full than it really is, because there is less empty space on the walls and on the floor. They also add a lot of personality to a room, like for example, I use a lot of plants in every single room, and it brings a lot of life to the room, especially since I want the house to look like it's a bit more witchy and lived in, and it just helps the overall house look more cohesive. You can try this with mirrors, wall shelves with trinkets on them, and even food items. This tip really fuses different types of room themes together, especially since you have a common trend throughout each room, so it helps bring all of the different rooms together into your house into one nice little bow. So I think if you're struggling with trying to make the different rooms in your house look a bit more like they're part of the same house, this is a really good tip to use for that. The rotation of items can really transform how a house looks. Instead of putting everything flat on the wall, putting things at different angles makes the house look more unique and can also help make a large, intimidating room look a bit smaller than it is and make it look more cozy. I like to do this with wardrobes, big mirrors, and anytime I feel like a room looks flat and dull. You can also try this with your beds in any of your bedrooms. I feel like this tip overall just makes the house look more unique because it is very different from the usual of just putting everything flat against the wall at right angles and sort of like that. So by introducing a different type of angle at a diagonal, it might look a lot more interesting. Make use of the doorways in each room. You can go into the housing menu and change each of the doorways of each room into an open concept, wide arch, or small doorway depending on what fits the house better. Open concept can be very useful if you want a super large room, and this way you can stack two large rooms and eliminate the doorway in the middle. The big arch is nice when you want the rooms next to each other to still be very visible, but also make it obvious that they are not the same room. And finally, the smaller doorway is nice when you want the room to be a bit more private and not as revealed as the others. It kind of conceals most of the doorway, so it is a nice addition for that. The doorways are super useful for breaking up and opening up different rooms, so make sure to play around with this when designing your house. I found this very useful when I was making my kitchen because I needed a really large room for the kitchen, especially since I was doing cake parties. And this way I had two large rooms next to each other, so I had a lot of space to put all the cooking stations I needed together as well as other decorations. Use lighting to your advantage when decorating. Windows are great for different sunlight levels in each room, and you can either have smaller or larger windows in the rooms, so these are also fun to adjust and see what looks best depending on your preferences. You should also look into using candles, candelabras, and other light or flame related fixtures because they can bring a lot of life and color into a room while serving as a cute decoration to fill up empty space at the same time. Sometimes when you have rooms with no lighting whatsoever, they can look a bit dull. Lighting also helps highlight different parts of the room you want to bring more focus and attention to. I have a clip here showing the difference of a room with all of the lights off and then the same room with all of the lights on. You can see how much it heavily transforms the room and turns it from somewhat more lifeless and boring to a room that's a lot more vibrant and inviting. So definitely try adding lighting to different parts of the room and playing around with where you place it, as it can definitely be a huge improvement on how your room looks overall. And it can also help you bring more focus to certain aspects of your room or different decorations that you want to be the main focus of the room. A good outdoors tip is to use trees as a way to make pathways. You can place trees in a way that helps to kind of make a pathway leading up to your house or block off a certain area that you might want to draw attention to when someone visits your plot. I have my trees positioned so that they lead you to the entrance of my house and create a nice shadowy area. I also positioned them so that it leaves a bit of sunlight in between so that the entire area isn't covered in shadows. You can play around with this a lot as there's a lot of ways you can place the trees that can either be used as a design, a fence of a sort, a pathway, or anything just to spice up the outside of your home. I like the way my trees are placed because it makes for a nice pathway and emphasizes my house entrance and just leads you directly to it. I mean, one of the videos I watched used trees as like a maze that would lead you to a specific secret location in the back, and they had the tree specifically placed so that they only knew how to get there and they had to lead other people there themselves. So this is an extremely inventive way to use the trees, and I'm sure you can get this creative with other things in the game as well. My last big tip is to use the modification bench. It is so useful for making completely different sets of furniture match and look amazing together. You can completely transform the entire vibe of a set by just changing the color palette and making it fit to the theme you want your room to be. It will recolor a piece of furniture to one of the specific color palettes, and this one has personally inspired me to use furniture sets I originally would never have used. Especially with certain sets, if you love the style but don't necessarily want the colors, this tip highly expands the amount of furniture you'll end up using in a room because it opens up so many more furniture options now that you have different colors you can apply to them. Here's an example of the same Moonstruck couch in the berry coloring and then the other one in the Calathea coloring. You can see which elements are changed, such as the couch color, the pillow color, and other different elements. This obviously varies by item as it doesn't necessarily change every single color on it, but it generally does a good job at choosing which colors are changed. The Moonstruck table lamp, for example, is one of those items that just barely ever so slightly changes when you do change the color on it, so just kind of be aware as you're doing it. Some of them will have a huge effect and some of them will barely change at all. The rest of these tips are small but are very helpful in decorating your house. These tips include pressing Z to turn off your grid so that you can place items wherever you want instead of being restricted to the squares, using the top-down view after pressing H in order to get a bird's eye view of your plot, and finally using the scroll wheel on your mouse instead of using Q and E in order to rotate your items faster, as well as being able to do it more smoothly. Those are all of my favorite decorating tips that I have been using consistently in order to decorate my Palia plot. Thank you all so much for watching, and like and subscribe if this video helped you, and have fun decorating in Palia.